color, the quality of the light, that kind of humming vitality that you get. You know, you're hiking and the rocks are humming and the sand's humming. And the brilliance of the colors and the plants. It was just extraordinary.
Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 110. If you'd like more information about the podcast, it's all at the website desertladydiaries.com, and I invite you to engage with the guests, with other listeners, or me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries, or on Twitter at Desert Lady Diary. Born in England, Jane Spider Fawke graduated from the Royal College of Art with a master's in fashion and textile design. She came to America after 10 years in the ready-to-wear industry in Paris, France, and speaks fluent French and Italian. She designed in the U.S. for another 15 years, then pursued her second dream to become a park ranger. She was hired by the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency in Thousand Oaks in 2002. She bought her desert home in 2005 and moved here full-time in 2015, 2 years after her retirement. She received her Desert Naturalist Certificate from UC Riverside in May of this year and does a lot of volunteer work with kids, and recently worked with Stacy Doolittle and T. Hamidi, also two Joshua Tree residents, helping to clean up Tortoise Island in downtown Joshua Tree. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
What was your very first experience with desert?
When I was a kid in England, we used to have this Saturday morning cinema thing called the ABC Minors, and there was always a cartoon and a movie and then some kind of nature thing. So we always had John Ford and John Wayne movies.
Oh my
and when
gosh.
I saw Monument Valley, it was, whoa, I'm going there one day.
Wow.
And remember, I was a little teeny kid in a very, very poor mill town in the middle of England with this idea, I'm going to be a cowboy, whatever.
So was your first trip to the desert when you moved to California, or had you been to the U.S. before you moved here?
Yes, I first came to the desert, I think it was probably around 1982, 83 on vacation, and it just tugged my heart.
What was it? What do you think it was about it that drew you in?
The color, the quality of the light, that kind of humming vitality that you get. You know, you're hiking and the rocks are humming and the sand's humming. And the brilliance of the colors and the plants. It was just extraordinary.
So did that trip just solidify that feeling that you initially had when you first saw it? And was your first trip to Monument Valley? Did you go there?
No, I came out here. If I remember right, I came out here on a very, very quick afternoon drive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a friend who lived in Orange County, and she said, we'll just go up to Joshua Tree for the afternoon. So it was a very quick in and out, and it was just unbelievably beautiful. So everything I thought it would be.
Oh, good. Tell me about studying fashion and textiles, because that seems totally away from being a park ranger.
I know. Well, imagine that you've got this very poor background kid from this mill town in the middle of England watching the French haute couture shows on the telly at my friend's house, because we never had a telly, we were too poor. And watching this and thinking, that's so glamorous. I think it was Christian Dior, and it must have been about 1960, and it just looks so amazing. So I started working I was always very good at art. So by the time I was in fifth form at school, I had a fantastic biology teacher.
What is fifth form?
I don't know what it's called here. I was 15. I can never work out the grades and things here.
Gotcha.
And I had an incredible biology teacher, Jackie Garland, who I still write to, and a fantastic art teacher, Mrs. Hammond, who I still write to. And both of them put me up for scholarships. So I got a scholarship to art school and a scholarship to agricultural college.
Oh, interesting.
But this is what happens when you're 15. Do I want to sit on a tractor in the snow? Or do I want to be twisting the night away in Paris? Well, Paris obviously won.
Right.
But I always loved nature. And even when I lived in the cities, when I lived in Paris, I would go to Versailles for the day and bird watch and just be out with nature all the time. Because for me, it was with all the hubbub and craziness of the fashion world, to me it was like an aspirin. You know, I went there to de-stress and think and be alone. And then my best friend moved to America and she said, you've got to come here. It's a land of opportunity. Absolutely true. So in 1986, I packed up 2 bags and my cat and arrived in New York and got a job. And I did that for 86 to 2002. And all the meantime, I could see big changes in the fashion world.
Like
I can make anything from a shoe to a hat and anything in between. And I just saw the fashion industry degenerating into ripping out bits of paper and knocking everyone else off. And everything was computerized, which was really shocking to me.
Kind of takes the art feeling
it takes
out of
the complete art out of it. And if you look at fashion and you look at the colours today, they're all just very flat, taken off the computer. There's no life in them. Whereas we would dye our own colours, we would buy embroidery skeins, things that were already living. So all the time I'd been volunteering with this agency in Thousand Oaks, and one day they had a position on their weed abatement team, which is clearing all the weeds around houses for fire, for the fire season. And I said to the supervisor that I'd been volunteering with for 5 years, can I do it? And he said, try it. He's laughing. And the first day I went out we were Weed Crew 1, and the 2 other guys were homeless. It was so brilliant, and I got so filthy and so dirty, and I had 40 pounds of gear on my back. Wow. Because I was a newbie, so I had to carry the emergency first aid kit, the fire extinguisher, the big water thing for everybody. Oh, and I got home that night, filthy, dirty, exhausted, fell on the bed at like 6 o'clock at night because we started at 7 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
And I woke up the next morning and I said, I can do this. And I did. And I did that 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 2 years. We cleared all the trails in Thousand Oaks. We did 3.75 million square feet. And then 2 years later, they found somebody somewhere and they flew a position. And when I applied, there were 7 people for this incredible job. And luckily I got it.
Yeah.
75 question exam, 3 essays, various subjects, how to deal with a runaway horse and a tragic head injury, plan a new trail and budget it and explain how you're going to do the trail, and then write a short program for school children. Those are the 3 essays. Okay. And then an oral with other park rangers from the area, and then my supervisor and I got the job. Yay! And that was it. And I did that for 13 years, and I loved every minute of it.
And in the same place?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Thousand Oaks. But eventually my poor old bud just started to break down. It's a very, very physical job.
Sure.
And I was 62, and one of the guys I worked with, he was completely broken down, back surgeries and all kinds of stuff. And I said, you know what?
I don't want to be that guy.
No. So I retired. I retired at 62. And 2 years later, my husband, Alan, said, come on, we're going to the desert. I said, well, it's Wednesday, honey. He said, no, we're going forever.
Oh, my gosh.
Because we'd been coming up every weekend since 2005.
I was going to ask you how that all started.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And my shift was 4 10-hour days. So I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. So we'd come up Sunday afternoon and leave Tuesday afternoon. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the day he said that, I couldn't get that U-Haul rented quick enough.
Out. So was that in 2005 when you bought the house? Or
yes.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Why did you buy it?
Well, we saw lots of different houses. Some were brand new. Some were ugly. Some were near people. I wanted to be remote. I didn't want to hear people and their dogs and their radios. And I wanted to be very remote. And we eventually found this place way, way up in North Joshua Tree. Okay. We're kind of in between the Mesa and Homestead Valley. Okay. And it was in complete disarray. It had been empty for 7 years. Half of no roof. Roadrunner nests, rat nests, the whole thing. And I looked at it and I said to Alan, and it was three 5-acre parcels. And I said to Alan, we're going to buy it. And he said, no. And I said, this is my vision. Window, patio, door. And it turned out exactly like I said. So it was really brilliant. And we were driving down the road, Alan, my husband, I'm not going to and there was a huge tortoise in the middle of the road. And of course I gave him a drink and moved him. And I sent a picture to my mentor, who sent it to our friend who was the chief of the Second Mesa on Hopi Indian sovereign territory. And Mr. Williams said, tell Spider to buy the house. The Hopis believe that the world rests on the back of a tortoise.
Oh my goodness.
And if she buys the house, the world will come to her. And it has.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
So we have bobcats, we've had a mountain lion and a cub. I've got incredible birds, all my snakes, of course, wild.
Yeah.
And it's just been incredible.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the creatures, because
Yes.
I recently did a survey of some of the listeners, and they said they wanted to hear more about the dangerous parts of the desert. So talk about, I don't know that it's necessarily the creatures that are dangerous, but I think it can be the weather and the heat and things like that. So where would you start with a question like that?
Well, I would just say to anyone coming to the desert, do some research. If you've never been to the desert before, do not come in July and August, because it's very, very hot. And if you're not used to it, I see people on the trails in Joshua Tree at 11 o'clock on a morning in July. I usually go out at like 6, 7 a.m. And they've got like a 12-ounce bottle of water. And they're red and sweaty and screaming at each other. Well, that is the first sign of heat exhaustion. And heat exhaustion turns into heat stroke in the flash of an eye. People always worry about the poisonous snake. Well, there are no poisonous snakes. Snakes are venomous. And usually at that time of day, they're hiding because they've got brains. They don't want to be out in this weather. But if you see a snake, leave it alone. I say to the kids that I work with, would you like it if someone poked you with a stick? No. So leave them alone.
Right.
And snakes do not chase you. They don't have any legs. But if you're messing about in the rocks, you've got to use your brain and watch where you're going. It's not dreamland up here.
No.
The desert is a very harsh mistress, as I'm sure many of the people who come up here and think, oh, I'm going to live here and have an Airbnb and park my truck and do donuts and have raves, I think they're finding that out now.
Right. And that's what I feel like. I feel like there was like this maybe trend. It was trendy to come up here and, you know, do whatever they were doing. But I think the desert has a way of sorting people out.
Yes.
I feel like. And
Yes.
I think that was some kind of a bubble that we've experienced. And maybe in the next year or two, it'll all pop.
I think so.
And it'll happen again, I'm sure.
Yes.
But there will be some other place that they're running off to Instagram themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's very sexy, because when we got our house in 2005, we got the 15 acres and the 3 cabins. I mean, they were pretty derelict, but we got that for 60 grand. Where can you get 15 acres for 60 grand? No. And now it's gone up, but it's still very sexy to someone who works from home and can't even afford their rent in LA to come up here and have a house and a little garden and all that stuff. And be an hour's drive from Palm Springs and Whole Foods and all that rubbish.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I don't think, I was just listening to some old episodes because I'm working on a project. I said to somebody at that point, I said, I think I've been down the hill probably 8 times in 2 years. I have everything I feel like I need up here. I very rarely go down there at all. So
Well, so do I, but unfortunately my husband is addicted to Sherman's Deli. Addicted to finding the quintessential Chinese restaurant. And we've been to every one and he doesn't like any of them. So it's the continual search for the Chinese restaurant. Oh.
That's funny. So when you moved here, you had been coming up for a while. Did you meet any people while you were doing that? Or was it mostly when you initially came and got settled in? And then what did you start doing to get out and...
Well, I meet new people all the time. Usually it's through my volunteering. And when we got up here in 2005, obviously I had my neighbours. And I joined different things like the Mojave Desert Land Trust. That was just starting up then, and volunteered with them. I saw that Joshua Tree had this naturalist certificate that I've been working on and doing all the classes.
Yeah.
So bit by bit we got to meet different people. Then transitions started up and I met some people through transitions.
Okay.
And just carried on meeting different people.
Just going out and kind of getting involved.
Going out and getting involved, yeah. And I've always been really big on volunteering.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do cleanups and the land trust and then my naturalist certificate, that kind of thing.
How did you get involved with Stacy to clean up the island on Gwen?
She had something on Facebook about anyone want to help me clean up Tortoise Island. And a couple of times I flaked because it was too hot or something else turned up. But I just went up to do it last time with her.
Do you think that's just an accumulation of what's blowing down the highway? Is it what is it that's getting it all littered up?
I think it's a combination of the restaurants and the businesses around there and just general weather, wind, highway. I mean, we found probably 1 million cigarette butts.
Oh dear.
Which is really stupid. People chucking cigarettes out of their car. Because even though we're in the desert, we still have a really high fire risk, especially with all the grass we've got now from last year. But she'd done it 2 or 3 times, so we were on the last quarter.
Oh, okay.
Near the post office, that end.
The
West End.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we maybe got about 8 big garden bags. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. And if Stacy's listening and Tanya's listening, I thank them as well.
I do Sunny Vista from Aberdeen up to my house, and then I do Sonora from Starfire down to Border.
Wow, good for you.
Because I think if Airbnb people see that trash, they're going to say, there's a load of dirty old hillbillies up here. We can do that too, Chuck.
Yeah.
So the first time I did it, I got like 20 bags of trash. And now I'm down to like a supermarket bag.
Oh, wonderful.
Which is very cool.
Yeah, that is great.
Really cool.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. But I'd love to meet the people who keep throwing out the energy drink cans and the teeny Captain Morgan bottles.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to meet them because I get like $15 a week from all their cans.
Are you taking it? Which one are you taking it to?
The one in Yucca.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think Robert just reopened down here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he just reopened down here somewhere.
Right. And if you're listening and you're not sure what we're talking about, California has a CRV, it's called. So you pay, 5 cents or a dime, depending on what you buy, on each bottle. And it's mostly just drinking stuff. It's not, I've tried to do like spaghetti sauce and all that stuff. They don't take it. But what's happened is they had a contract with a huge Planet Recycle was the name of the company, I think, who had a place in the Stater Brothers parking lot where you could take your recyclables and, get a little ticket and go in Stater Brothers and get your money. And they just completely shut down that whole operation. All those people are out of work and everything. So now in California, we're like, okay, so we're paying all this money. Where is it that we're supposed to go get it back? And I think there's only 2. And now if you say someone's reopened, 3 in the Morongo Basin.
Ridiculous.
So, yeah, it's crazy town.
And in the old days, you used to get the 5 cents back. Remember that?
Right.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
What a doddle.
I know, yeah. So tell me where Spider came from. Your nickname.
My first day at art school.
Oh, at art school?
Yeah, first day at art school. I'm 6'2". I weigh about 90 pounds. I've got on a mini skirt that's about 3 inches long and 6-inch platform shoes. And bright red hair that's all permed. And I walked into art class and this girl, Linda, who became my greatest friend, she says, "Ooh, look at you. You look like a bloody spider." And I thought, oh, how cool. That's my new name, Groovy Man. And that was it.
That was it?
That was it.
See, and I thought it had maybe something to do with all of your involvement with, like, the desert creatures.
No, it's because I was so tall and skinny, yeah.
So I notice on Facebook a lot of people, I think I've done it myself, will find a spider or will find something and we'll take a picture of it and put it up and say, what is this? Or what name is this? And you're really great about jumping in and telling people. Is that a result of you working as the park ranger all this time, or is that also part of what you've learned getting the certificate?
Both. And always since I was a kid, I was very ADD, and my mom taught me to read. And I'm one of those people that has to know the name of everything. And if I don't know it, I'll research it and find it.
That's great. Well, I'm sure a lot of people appreciate you telling them what those things are and whether they are venomous, poisonous, or whatever it is, right?
It's really funny. There's this site on Facebook that I love because it's so nutty. Is Indian Canyon open? You've probably seen it.
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's so brilliant. Is it open? And people will say, oh, 6:22 a.m. The barriers are up. Ah, very cool. And this lady said, what should we call this site? And I said, maybe we should call it, is this snake poisonous? And she was cracking up. It's really funny. Because you get all these, is Indian Canyon open? Is Stater Brothers open? Is it true?
Oh my
is this
goodness.
poisonous? What is this?
Sometimes I just like to put on there, have you heard of Google?
Or iNaturalist, or Audubon, or Merlin.
Something. I mean, yeah. We have it at our fingertips these days. You don't
know.
even need to be asking.
Yeah.
It's silly.
But, people don't have that searching feeling.
That's interesting, right?
You've got to have that will to, what on earth, why is it doing...
the curiosity.
What are you doing there?
To dig,
Yeah.
right, and figure it out. What was the attraction to snakes for you?
I just think they're really beautiful, and they're very much maligned by society because so many people kill them, which drives me crazy because they're incredible predators. You think that a healthy snake can kill 300 rodents a year. And people are chopping their heads off, which is a horrible way to kill them, actually, because they're so primitive, it takes them a long, long time to die.
Oh, I see. And I know that Danielle Wall, who has been on the podcast, she often indicates that if you do call someone other than someone like a snake wrangler, if you will, typically the Yucca Valley contingent will just come and get them and kill them.
Yeah.
They don't relocate.
Yeah.
Whereas if you call somebody else, they will relocate them.
When I worked in Thousand Oaks, I would hear the snake call go out and I'd go racing over, and then the fire engine would come along and they'd say, oh, I'd say, please guys. They'd say, okay, because it's a problem of insurance.
Oh.
If you have a venomous snake and either the animal control or the fire station doesn't dispatch it, and 10 years down the road you're bitten by a snake, it's a huge, huge insurance problem, because the person could say, oh, well, it was at my house and they didn't kill it.
Oh.
That's what the fire captain explained to me.
Interesting.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah. Well, I watched Danielle do it here. We had a big gopher snake. And a bunch of people were like, why are you relocating a gopher snake? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of people here. This is an age and up community.
They're going to freak out.
They're going to freak out. So it's probably just better. So she did. And she said it seemed undernourished, which kind of made me happy. It tells me there's not a lot of rodents around. So she took it and rehydrated it, brought it back, and then took it out probably to her grandfather's property and stuff.
Good.
And took care of it. So, yeah. But your Snakes and Earth Day, you had mentioned.
Oh yeah, every day the rangers took part in Earth Day at Thousand Oaks, and we used to have a huge touch table. We had all kinds of pelts. We had coyote, badger, skunk, squirrel, and then I would bring my snakes that were local snakes. So it would be my king snake, my gopher snake, and my Cow Mountain king snake, for the kids to look at. And then people would see them and they would see how beautiful all this stuff was. Like we would have bones and skulls and the pelts and the animals, and it was a way of doing outreach.
Well, and kind of educational. And then when they are that person who is out and, oh shoot, there's a snake, they can go, oh, but just leave it be. And
Exactly.
Yeah, just educational. Yeah. How many snakes do you have now?
12.
What? So do you have, like Danielle said, she has a wall in her house with some different, I don't know if you don't call them cages. They're like
Terrariums.
glass. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine have one of those old weekend sheds, the 10 by 12 junk shed.
Uh-huh.
And I've rehabbed it into an animal room. So it was very funny because I got different bids on it. Bids from 2,000 to 6,000 to rehab it. But I did it myself for 900, which is really brilliant.
Yes.
I did the insulation. My neighbour helped me do all the proper boards. And we're going to plaster it in the winter when they're all brumating. Brumating is the reptile term for hibernation.
Okay.
Mammals hibernate, reptiles brumate.
Brumate. Okay.
So then they're all on big metro shelving, with and they've all got proper environments. They've got sand and rocks and bones and
great.
twigs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were they snakes that you had already had when you lived in the Thousand Oaks area and brought with you? Okay.
Yeah. The day we moved full time, I had to adopt 70 animals. And it was a tear-filled day because I just knew there was no way they could live up here. I mean, I had rainforest boas, I had blue-tongued skinks, I had day geckos from Madagascar, all very delicate.
Yeah.
And I knew, our house is 850 square feet, and I had another room in our condo that was just for the animals with mist and heat and lamps, blah, blah, blah. the whole thing. Boy, that was a tear-filled day.
I bet. Wow, how bittersweet.
Yeah, but they went to really great homes.
Oh, that's great.
So, and some of these were really valuable animals. I mean, the day geckos, they're very, very expensive animals in the pet trade. And they were long-time captives, so they were really healthy. And
Right, yeah. Well, and then you want to make sure that they go to proper people that are going to take care of them and understand the value. So when did you finally get to Monument Valley?
Oh, the first time was 1988, and I couldn't believe it. I was just couldn't believe it. I just felt so at home.
It's amazing how many people say that about either even coming here or to any desert space. I think that if you're meant to be there, you just kind of feel it as soon as you get there.
Yeah, it's very, very visceral. Same as the Grand Canyon. And you read about the Grand Canyon. I've got loads of books on the Grand Canyon because it fascinates me because I love geology. But when you come to that overlook and you see it, I couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's such a treasure. We're so lucky. And it's like, 10 hours away. It's quite a long drive. But in my head, it's like I'm flying. Ooh,
right, because you know where you're going.
Yeah, I'm going. And it's the beauty and the colours and the fact that there's a geological anomaly in there. There's rock that's like 2 billion years old and it's topped with rock that's 200,000 years. How did that happen? Yeah. And geologists are trying to work it out. What happened? Why is that there? It's like in Morongo, there's a big chunk of rock that's really, really, really ancient, and it's covered with a very young rock down in the big Morongo Preserve. It's extraordinary. How did this happen? What was going on?
How do they try and examine that?
Geologists are just so incredibly clever and smart, and how they work this out, it's how they worked out that the moon got bashed out of the earth is just unbelievable. I saw Ad Astra last night, and it's, oh God, I wish I was an astronaut. That's what I want to do, the third thing.
That's the third
go
thing,
into space. And I said to my friend, I said, oh my God, I would love to go into space. And she's like, ooh, no. Floating around and looking at the earth.
Totally different perspective.
Totally different. And that whole thing about the overlook syndrome, when astronauts have seen the earth and it just blows their mind.
I was just going to say, blows their mind. Would blow my mind.
So, I love the colours of the rocks, that rich red, the iron. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. It was just so huge.
I think that's the thing, too, is it brings you to a place of, wow, I'm really small in the grand scheme of all of what's happening around me. And even here with our night sky, you can get a similar feeling of that smallness.
I love going out and watching the space station go over. I'll put NASA on so I can see what they're doing, and I go, I know what you're doing up there.
I can see you.
I can see you, you little bright spot. I love doing that.
Well, I'm so glad you came to talk with me today. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, if you would please choose 4 numbers between 1 and 50.
Okay. 25. 53.
No.
Oh,
how about
up to
5?
50.
Yeah.
25, 14.
Okay.
22. And 6.
Great. All right. Let me read these questions. What was the last thing you watched on TV and why did you watch it? Then we'll go to what's your favorite kind of pie and why? And then we have how would your best friend describe you? And since coming to the desert, what have you been surprised to discover about yourself? So if you're listening and you would like to hear Jane's answers to those questions, I would love it if you'd go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and sign up to become a patron on Patreon, where you will have access to the exclusive Diary Unlocked content. Thank you again for being here today.
You're very welcome. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Dawn.
I was so happy to see so many familiar faces and meet some new faces at the Old Schoolhouse lecture series last Friday night. Thank you so much for coming out to support the podcast. I'm so grateful to Kevin Wong from the Joshua Tree National Park Desert Institute for asking me to speak, the Old Schoolhouse Museum and 29 Palms Historical Society for hosting, and Les Snodgrass for all your technical assistance. Thank you so much. I have shout-outs this week to Brenda, Julie, Cheryl, Gloria, Deanne, Rosalie, and Les for signing up for the weekly newsletter. Thanks so much for doing that. I appreciate you. And I would love your vote for the Buzzsprout 2019 Discover Pods Awards. Would you go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the yellow Vote by October 21 button? It will take you directly to the nomination page. Please put Desert Lady Diaries in category number 9, Best Interview Style, and any other category that seems right. Voting is open until October 21st, and they do not allow ballot stuffing, so one vote per person, please. Thank you. Here's Joshua Tree local Catherine Svela to tell you about her podcast.
Are you looking for a new way to think and transform? Tune into Myth Matters, a bi-weekly podcast of storytelling and conversation about mythology and why it's important to life today. Find a more creative way to live. Learn more at mythicmojo.com and keep the mystery in your life alive.
See you next week. Thanks so much for listening.